No, we were discussing on TMBS on Tuesday, um, the idea that we should, a new push to get rid of hunger in the United States and globally. And we were talking about, Lula and the Workers' Party did it in Brazil. And there was a lot of things that were focused on, like there was cash transfer and things like that. But there was also um, farming policies that incentivized small farmers to grow not only cash crop for exports, but
Yes.
actually necessities that needed to be there.
Yes.
Then it was subsidized so that local schools could buy those things.
Yes. Yes.
There's a lot.
It can't be done.
It's a must. And even, you're talking about obviously a great government with a very successful president, but I mean, that was not, they were dealing with the World Bank and IMF. Well, actually not the World. They paid off the World Bank and IMF and didn't want to continue dealing with them, but they played by plenty of market rules. Right. And they were, it wasn't a radical government in some respects, but they still took on and were very serious. And that was a core goal of Lula, to get rid of hunger. And when you look at the details of the policies, of course, it was just distributing food and cash subsidies for sure. That's important, but equally was the actual incentivizing of, durable capacity and
absolutely,
and
it can
resiliency.
Be done.
Yeah,
it can be done. It can be done. But now let's contrast that with what is happening in most African countries.
Yes,
where you have governments now, and this is something that's being promoted and even financed by the World Bank, displacing smallhold farmers from their land, displacing them, and giving their land or selling off their land to these foreign investors, these huge agribusiness multinational companies. That is what's happening in many African countries, in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, throughout the continent, right? So you now have, in fact, this could be an opportunity to redirect the energy of all these young Africans in the urban areas, unemployed in urban areas, right? And getting involved in petty crimes as well, in order to survive, right? Instead of taking them and financing agricultural projects where they can actually become productive and earn a living, and be able to actually have the money to occasionally come to the urban areas. You come with money and you go back to your productive farming. So that opportunity is being lost when the land is actually being taken from the people that need it, creating more people that are going to become destitute in the rural areas. And that is one of the big untold stories by the major international media, the displacement of Africans from their land in the rural areas. And some of the manifestation of the collapse of the economies in African countries is the whole phenomenon of, all these young Africans drowning as they cross the Mediterranean, trying to make it to Europe. That to me is an indication that things are much worse today than they were in the 1960s and 1970s, soon after African countries won independence. We never saw that phenomenon before, where people are so desperate. That thousands are drowning, and you still take a chance. Why? Not because you just want to get to Europe and marvel at, the great buildings, most that were built by expropriated, wealth from Africa anyway. No, you want to go there because you can get a job cleaning the streets, working in a kitchen, working in cleaning toilets or what have you, and send some money back to your family. In Africa, foreign remittance of money from Africans who go to work overseas had exceeded the total of all the level of foreign aid on an annual basis. That's how important it has become in Africa, right? Which is also the other thing that we didn't mention in our discussion about the impact of COVID coronavirus on Africa's economy. That's another thing that's been significantly wiped out because the Africans that are overseas, many have also lost their jobs. So they're not able to send the money that their relatives had become very dependent on for food.
It's such a disgusting. I mean, it's just you have these policies, then you force migration. And of course, if people want, the choice to move around and go through a process, obviously open and tolerant policies should be practiced everywhere. But no one should feel a necessity anywhere in the world to migrate just to survive. And that's a direct result of our policies. And then, of course, we get here, and it's so disgusting. And even the debates in the United States about that never get to the core of the policies that force the migration like this to begin with.
Absolutely.
Not people choosing to travel and move and study and all these great cosmopolitan things. This is like you coming to Syracuse and gracing us with your presence for the last couple of decades. Thank you, Milton. But just, but people with these horrific journeys,
absolutely,
driven by global economic system, military intervention. And then it all becomes, it's like, yes, of course, we have to fight the racism and xenophobia of Trump and these other disgusting leaders in Europe. But at the same time, if it just be, it's like the liberals, we pat ourselves on the back. We want to, we want some immigration. Well, what about the context of this terrorized labor force in the global economy?
Well put. I have nothing to add to what you just said, and that sadly is what, and it's not that complicated. It's not, you can't say this is a difficult conversation. It's too complex to, no, it's very straightforward. It is because of the policies that you dictate and enforce in these countries. These are the consequences. And then when they get to those countries, they're either locked up in detention centers or sent back, or, allowed to actually drown,
Yep. That's a significant thing. That's a lot. And actually, I credit very specifically to Pope Francis when he went to Lampedusa, I think, to specifically talk about the drowning of African migrants trying to come through the Mediterranean. And also that's how a leader like Bashir in Sudan, who was a big international pariah, all of a sudden got the good graces again of European leaders because he was willing to terrorize Africans attempting to make that move.